going on, people? LP2000, right back at you with another video. Yes, welcome back to Leslie Chambers Kaiju Reviews on behalf of Summit Kaiju. And I'm your host, Leslie P. Chambers. And today we're taking a look at another great X-Plus figure release. Yes. And you already know. You already clicked the title. You already know what design I'm covering. Yes, my most favorite Godzilla design of all time. Yes. So without further ado, let's go head first into this review. And today we're taking a look at the X-Plus Deforeal Godzilla 1964 Standard Edition from my most favorite Godzilla film of all time, Mothra versus Godzilla, also known as Godzilla versus the Thing. Yes. And this is the figure. This is the figure right here in all his small, awesome glory. Yes. And we know how to do things around here. Let's get into the box before we get into the figure. And this is the box, basically, what the Deforeals come into. You know, this is not the actual box, because I trashed the box of the 64 like a long time ago. This is the one of the 98, which will be coming real soon. I will be doing a review of the 98 Deforeal coming real soon. But this is basically the same type of box that the 64 came in. You know, with the window display, had a picture of you know, the logo of Mothra vs. Godzilla down at the bottom. You know, you've seen these Deforeal boxes before. Nothing more, nothing less. So that's it with the box, you know. So let's get into the figure itself. And you know me, when it comes to the 64, I'm all about the 64. You know what I mean? And this was a great release to have. Great release to acquire, I should say. And this guy came out, I want to say February of this year, 2019. Yes, they've been doing the 64 justice this year, as a matter of fact. Because in the previous month, in January, they brought forth the, X-Plus I'm talking about, brought forth the Favorite Sculptors line 64, which didn't rub a lot of folks the right way. But for me, I still think that's a solid release, despite what people may say about it, what negativity may be thrown its way. I still find that release to be a stellar release. The Favorite Sculptors line 64. And the following month, they came forth with this Deforeal of the 64 Godzilla, based off his appearance, like I said, in Mothra vs. Godzilla. And we're not done yet with the 64 this year. Yes, because come next month, at the time of this recording, it is what? June the 23rd? June 23rd, Sunday morning, June 23rd. And come next month, hopefully without any production delays or anything like that, come July, late July, they're going to bring forth the 25 centimeter 1964 B-suit based off his appearance in the following film, Kaiju, the Three-Headed Monster. That will be coming in the 25 centimeter Toho Large Monster series to go along with the 25 centimeter 1964 King Kaiju that just got released. So when it comes to the 64, yes, they have been doing great with the 64 this year, you know. And honestly, between the Favorite Sculptors line, this one, and the upcoming 64B, it's going to be kind of hard for me to choose which one's my favorite, you know. But this is a stellar release. Yes, it is. Before we get up close and personal with this guy, I'll provide some inserts as we go along here. When it comes to the Deforeals, there are a great line to acquire, especially when it comes to some pieces. Far as me, I'm not really into these type of figures, these small type of figures. You know me. I'm into the 30 centimeters, the Sakai's, the Gigantics, the bigger stuff. I never really expected to go into this line. Except when a good friend of mine, Jeffrey Mulek, and a great supporter of myself and of the channel, like I said, he's a great friend of mine. He actually opened the door for me to go down the Deforeal line. He had an extra fourth form of Shin Godzilla that he wanted to sell, and he and I was going to be at G-Fest that particular year. I think that G-Fest was like maybe 2-3 years ago. I think 2 years ago, I think. And he was like, hey, I'm going to have an extra Deforeal fourth form of the Shin Godzilla. Like, you know, I don't really need it, but if you want it for the price that I paid for it, you know, he said, he even told me, he's like, look, I know you're not into that type of thing, but, you know, just try it out. Maybe you'll like it. And you know what? He was right, and I do like it. Now, let me make this perfectly clear, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going after every single one of them, because there are a few that I skipped out on, right? I skipped out on the anime for obvious reasons. I skipped out on the recently released Hedra, you know? There are a few that I will not go after, especially if they don't speak to me on a personal level. But when it comes to the 64, I'm all about the 64. Anything 64, especially if it looks good, I'm going after, you know? So with the Deforeal line, I kind of want that fine line, and I'm really picky and choose about what I want to acquire from this line. But aside from that, these things are nice. You know, they're highly detailed, despite the fact they're small figures. Really, really detailed. They don't take much space. They're not too expensive. Very, very affordable. It's a really like a cool line to really go after. And what's cool with this sculpt in particular, as well as other Deforeal sculpts. Now, the Deforeal figures in particular are basically like miniaturized versions of full-scale figures of Godzilla and or other kaiju, right? They just have a big head, smaller bodies, and blah, 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 blah. But what's so cool about like certain Deforeals, they actually take certain sculpts based off certain scenes in the movie. Like with this, for example, with Godzilla, you know, he has his tail chomped on by Mothra, which is basically what happened at the end or the climax to Mothra versus Godzilla. So I like how they incorporated that into this sculpt. Or the Deforeal 84. I had the version of Deforeal 84 that has him clutching the reactor, you know, and which basically is reminiscent of that particular scene in that film. Or the GMK Rick version that came with the a mini version of Baragon, where Godzilla is stomping on Baragon, basically to be reminiscent of their fight in the film. Or the 1954, the Train Biter, where it's the regular version, the one that came from the Godzilla store. It has him clutching the train in his mouth, basically reminiscent of the scene in the 1954 film. So I like there are some examples where, you know, these Deforeals are basically taken from certain moments in the film, certain iconic moments of the film that we all know and that we all can identify with. So I really do like that, you know. Once again, I'm not going to go after every single one of them, just those that really speak to me. At the time of recording, the ones that I do have right now in my collection, I have the 64, I have the standard 62, I have the fourth form of Shin, the standard fourth form of Shin, I have the standard GMK, and the Rick 84, and I have the standard 98. And I'm not done yet. At the time of recording, in a couple months, come October, I will be getting, along from, for me and for my wife, I will be getting the 2019 Godzilla from King of the Monsters that just came out. And what's so cool about that one, once again, as I mentioned about, you know, these Deforeals are taken from certain moments of the film. That's taken at that moment in the film where Godzilla is recharged and, you know, he blows his fire in the air. Basically, he's calling out for King Ghidorah, like, hey, I'm coming for you, you know. So I'm getting that come October. If there are any more Deforeals that speak to me that are nice looking and I might add to my collection, I will do that. A couple I do want to see from the Deforeal line, I want to see at least an 89, and I want to see at least a Godzilla 2000. I think those two will be really cool to see, you know. But for the most part, I've been highly pleased with what I have acquired as far as the Deforeal line is concerned. So let's go into Godzilla right now. Godzilla basically just, like I said, a miniaturized version of the 64 Godzilla. Charcoal gray skin, you know, with some highlights all over his body. You know, just typical Godzilla, what we know with the 25 centimeters and the 30s. But once again, with this being a Deforeal, a lot of more detail is packed into this sculpt, into this figure of Godzilla. What's so cool about Godzilla is, once again, is the fact that it's reminiscent of that scene in the film where he's attacked by surprise by the Mothra larva that clamps down on his tail and sends him into a frenzy. And this sculpt is reminiscent of that, with his arms, you know, wide like this, and you know, you had the Mothra larva attached to his tail, trying to hang on for dear life as Godzilla is just flailing his body and his tail all around. All that is really just is encompassed into this sculpt right here. You know, the toenails, the claws, dirty bone white, with some highlights going towards the base of the foot and to the base of his hands. The dorsal plates are popping. Dorsal plates, you know, dirty bone white color on his dorsal plates. They even got the shapes of the dorsal plates right on this Godzilla. Reminiscent of the suit, reminiscent of other X-Plus figures of the 64. Then you go down to his tail, a really long tail. It's curving upwards, and then you have at the very, very end the Mothra larva. And once again, this Mothra larva is sculpted and painted really well too, with the blue eyes, you know, the browns, the various shades of brown, light browns, dark browns all over Mothra's body here. Really, really, really nice. Really, really nice. And fun fact, as I was like doing some preparation shots for this video, you know, inserts or whatever, and I was taking some pictures or some video of this guy. Accidentally, he fell off my table, and the Mothra larva actually fell off. You know, it snapped off, which was really not such a big deal. You know what I mean? Of course, it was alarming at the time. But when he fell off, or when she fell off, I should say, you know, all I did was just took a little small dabble of super glue and just reattached Mothra to Godzilla's tail. But for the time being, I did take some insert shots of Mothra just so you can see how she looks unattached to the tail. Now, I don't suggest if you have this figure, don't try to break it off, because I don't want you to crack Mothra or at least do some damage to Godzilla's tail. What happened to me was a straight up accident, and I just made the most of it. But just be careful when you have this figure, especially when it comes to Mothra and her being attached to Godzilla's tail. Be very careful, because I don't want you to experience what I experienced. See, it was lucky for me. I was able to reattach Mothra with no problems. But if you happen to crack yours, where maybe Mothra's face gets cracked, or maybe Godzilla's tail gets too chipped off where you can't firmly reattach Mothra to it, that'll be a bad way to go. So please be careful with that. Last but not least, let's go, because this is really simple, short, and simple, sweet review, and straight to the point. The main selling point of Godzilla is his head. The head sculpt is really nice. The teeth are individually sculpted. The eyes, just sinister. The sinister eyes of Godzilla. Those hooded eyebrows. You know, it just basically screams 64 Godzilla. Now, when you put this up against the gigantic 64, which I do have, this head is almost about the same size as the gigantic 64's head. So when I put these two together, you know, this could really be attached to the 1964's gigantic's body, you know, if that was possible. Because they're both pretty much the same size in some respects, except for mine, I actually closed the mouth on my gigantic 64, but whereas this one is more open mouth, you know. But I like how both the head sculpts between the Deforeal and the gigantic are really comparable, you know, or comparable, I should say. It just shows the detail that went into the gigantic, the same detail that goes into this Deforeal, except it's basically a quarter of the price, and still packs a lot of detail that you will find in the gigantic as well as other 64 pieces, you know. But simple, short, and sweet. This really is a nice piece, especially if you're a 64 fan. This is the standard edition. The Rick version came with Godzilla with Mothra attached, but also came with a small little rocky mountainous base that's reminiscent of the rocky area that the Mothra larva twins fought Godzilla in the film. And on that base, you have another Mothra larva, kind of similar to this one, that's attached to Godzilla's tail, and she's hiding behind, or he's hiding behind one of the rocks. You know, I'm trying to get a better vantage point at Godzilla, so you can put like the rocky base either behind Godzilla or in front of Godzilla, basically to simulate the final battle in the climax of the film. So I really do like that. But I decided to go for standard. You know, I didn't want to go through the extra procedures of getting the Rick, you know what I mean? As long as I got this version of Godzilla in the Deforeal, that's all I really cared about, you know? And I'm really pleased. I'm really thoroughly happy with this purchase. This really is a nice piece. Once again, X-Plus has been killing it so far with the 64 pieces, with the Favorite Sculptors line, and now this, and now the upcoming 64B 25 centimeter. Man, once I get all three of them together, I may do a comparison and try to figure out which one is my favorite out of the year. As it stands right now, my favorite 64 piece to come out is the Favorite Sculptors line, but this one is really nice. It really is nice. They did a great job. Sculpt, paint job on Godzilla. Dorsal plates are popping. Mothra is done really well. Like I said, if you have this figure, please be careful of the Mothra larva. Please be careful. You know, I don't want you to experience what I experienced. Like I said, I was able to fix mine easy peasy. They may not be the same with the next case that happens to get broken or whatever. So please be extra careful, you know. Head sculpt, eyes, individually sculpted teeth, the color on the mouth. Just a solid representation. Just a miniaturized representation of the 64 Godzilla in the Deforeal line. I'm really am enjoying this piece. I really am. So you know what? Let's do one size comparison, and let's bring up all the 64s I have in my collection, and then towards the commentary portion of this video, towards the tail end, since this sculpt right here, this is reminiscent of the climatic battle in Mothra vs. Godzilla, the ending to Mothra vs. Godzilla. I know a lot of folks tend not to like this ending. I know a lot of folks tend to give this give this ending crap. A lot of folks don't like the fact that Godzilla essentially got defeated by 2 newborn babies. So in the commentary portion of the video, I will defend and show you why it really isn't that bad. It's really not that bad that, you know, a lot of folks seem to think. It really is a solid ending to this film, you know. Of course, no film is perfect except for this one. But at the same time, I know a lot of folks don't like this ending. I know a lot of folks can't stand this ending. I know a lot of folks don't like the fact that Godzilla was defeated in this manner. But I will go over some reasons why I defend it, why I will say it really isn't that bad. More on that later on. But for right now, let's do a comparison with all the 64s that I have in my collection, courtesy of X-Plus. And let's go to that 64 comparison right now. Folks, have you not seen a more beautiful sight? Oh my God, this is awesome. This is the reason why I collect. You know what I mean? This shot right here, this shot is church. This shot is gospel. This shot is truth. This shot is amazing. Yes, all of my X-Plus Godzilla 1964 pieces in one shot. Let's go from left to right, shall we? Yes, the one on the left, the awesome one on the left, the favorite sculptor's line 30cm version of Godzilla 1964. Of course, the man in the hour, the Deforeal. Of course, the big guy in the back, the gigantic series version. Yes, yes, yes. Next to him, we have the 25cm version, 64. And yes, the very, 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 very last one on the far right, the original 30cm version, Godzilla 1964. And as you can see, they look so well together. And once again, X-Plus has done a phenomenal job with the X-Plus 64 pieces thus far, I should say. They have done such a great job with all these pieces. I know some folks have issues with the favorite sculptor's line version. I know some folks don't really like the face on the 25cm version, you know. I know some folks really have an issue with the whole jaw situation of the gigantic. You know, call me a fanboy, call me whatever you want. But honestly, I think they have done a solid job with all the pieces that they have done as far as X-Plus is concerned. Only thing we're missing now is a Sakai version, you know. And once again, next month, we will get the 64B 25cm version. And I think he would look great along with his other 64 pals right here. Once again, this is great. This is such great awesomeness right here in one photo. I probably won't be up here that long because it might just crack the phone or crack the video because there's so much awesomeness here in one shot. But as you can see, once again, solid representation pieces of the 64 Godzilla, courtesy of X-Plus. Now that I have every one of them here, you're probably wondering, which one do I recommend? Honestly, I recommend all of them. If you have the money, I recommend every single one of them. But if I had to pick one out of the group, you already know what I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick the gigantic, you know. And despite what many people may say about that figure, that really is a nice figure. You know what I mean? Of course, it has issues. No figure is perfect. But this one really is a nice piece. And it's not as bad as some folks will lead you to believe. You know, basically all the Godzilla 1964 pieces are amazing. You know, like I said, with the favorite sculptor's line, the original 30cm, the 25cm version, as well as the Deforeal, which personally I didn't see myself going after because I, you know, for a long time, as I mentioned earlier, I've never really been a fan of those type of figures. But as you can see, with it being a 64 and with it being looking so good, I had to acquire this guy in my collection. And once again, this is just awesome. It really is awesome how I favored him from my most favorite to my least favorite, or still my favorite nonetheless. The gigantic are probably number one. Honestly, the favorite sculptor's line would be number 2. The original 30cm would be number 3. The 25cm version would be number 4. And of course, the Deforeal would be number 5. But they all are awesome. And they all get my highest recommendations of the 64 Godzilla, especially courtesy of X-Plus, you know. Only one that's missing is my gigantic M1 kit, you know. But this is strictly for X-Plus. This is strictly X-Plus pieces. Once again, if they do a Sakai, I'm going to be all over that. Or we just recently got the news that they're going back to the favorite sculptor's line with the 62. You know, the 62 where he's like walking, you know, mid-pose, walking, whatever. So you never know. They may go back to the favorite sculptor's line of the 64. Maybe give us the In Monster Maker 28 version, you know. You know, never say never. But with the 62 being getting another version in the favorite sculptors line, it just leaves other opportunities for other Godzillas that already been released to the favorite sculptors line to be released. So hopefully we'll get another 64 from the favorite sculptors line. Only time will tell. But until then, these pieces are quality pieces. I highly recommend every single one of them. And if you can find any of them or just one for a good price on the internet, please go for it. You will not be disappointed, especially if you're a fan of Mothra vs. Godzilla. And speaking of Mothra vs. Godzilla, let's move and segue into the commentary portion of this video, and let's talk about my defense of the ending to Mothra vs. Godzilla. And let's go to that commentary portion of the video right now. Okay, folks, I'm back with my final thoughts of the Deforeal Standard edition of Godzilla 1964, based off his appearance in the iconic, awesome Godzilla film, Mothra vs. Godzilla, also known as Godzilla vs. The Thing. Once again, great figure. I highly do recommend it, whether it's the Rick Boy or the Standard. You can't go wrong with this figure. Once again, it's so reminiscent of that particular moment in the film where Godzilla gets attacked by Mothra. And just a great piece. Like I said, it's small, very affordable. It's not a shelf hog, you know. It's a nice alternative piece, especially if you're a 64 fan and if you have all the other 64 pieces that you saw earlier in the size comparison. This will make a great alternative piece to go along with the others, you know. Or if you don't have any 64 pieces and you just strictly a Deforeal type of person, this really is a nice piece to add to your collection. Once again, a great piece in a Deforeal Standard edition of Godzilla 1964, which leads me into a very interesting topic that I want to cover, and that is the ending to Mothra versus Godzilla. Once again, a lot of folks don't really like this ending or the way it came about. A lot of folks don't like the fact that Godzilla essentially got defeated by 2 newborn babies, and that's basically what happened, and I'm not going to shy away from that, you know. But there are a couple of reasons why I defend this ending, and I will maintain that it's not really as bad as some folks will lead you to believe, you know. So let's set everything up, right? If you see Mothra vs. Godzilla, then you already know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, pause the video, go watch Mothra vs. Godzilla. If you're a Godzilla fan and you've not seen Mothra vs. Godzilla, I'm just gonna laugh. That's all I'm gonna say about that. I'm just gonna laugh. But still, watch Mothra vs. Godzilla. It really is a good film. Now, Mothra vs. Godzilla, if you haven't seen the film, but even if you have, I'm going to give a little quick synopsis of the film leading up to the final battle, which will lead into the topic at hand. Typhoon or hurricane ravages Japan, and it brings forth a giant monster egg. Some greedy businessmen want to take this giant egg and use it as a tourist attraction. Come to find out, it's really Mothra's egg. Mothra and the fairies come from Infant Island to try to reason with the businessmen to try to get it back. It's unsuccessful, so they go back to Infant Island. Some days later, Godzilla just pops up out of nowhere. Apparently, the same typhoon or hurricane that brought the egg also brought Godzilla back to Japan. So he wakes up and begins to rampage all over Japan. And so the people of Japan decide to go to Infant Island to see if Mothra can help. And even though there was some reluctance at first, Mothra agrees to fight Godzilla, which she does. Unfortunately for her, she was going through the last stages of her life. She was essentially dying. So even if she would go on to fight Godzilla, which she does, she would not be able to return to Infant Island. So Mothra knew going in that this was going to be her final battle. So she fights Godzilla. She ends up dying as a result. Godzilla eventually moves on and rampages his way more through Japan. The military tries to stop him with a couple ingenious plans, really, to try to bring him down. They're unsuccessful. Eventually, they got the egg to hatch. 2 Mothra larvae babies come out the egg. They find Godzilla. They find him. They fight him. They immobilize him, and Godzilla is dumped into the ocean, and Japan is saved. That's basically the end of the movie. That's basically the movie in a nutshell. But the ending, like I said, has not rubbed a lot of Godzilla fans the right way. You know, and let me just set it up for you, you know. After Godzilla goes through the final military plan to bring him down, he makes his way towards an island, right? He gets on shore to the island. At this point, the Mothra larvae have already been born, they're hatched, and they spot Godzilla and they try to chase him down. Godzilla is on the island. He turns around and he sees the Mothra larvae, I should say, approaching from the ocean. And Godzilla just looks at him and is like, okay, I'm not bothered by y'all, you know, whatever. You know what? He probably thought that what a lot of Godzilla fans thought. Like, how am I going to be defeated? If you're Godzilla, you're probably thinking, how am I going to be defeated by these two little babies right here? You know? So Godzilla at first doesn't really pay him any kind of attention. He turns around and tries to go more inward into the island. And then he turns around once he gets inward, he turns around and he sees the Mothra larva coming on shore. And so Godzilla's like, okay, while you're following me, and he actually sets fire to the village. There's like a village where he rampages his way through, and the village is like between him and the Mothra larva, who at this point, like I said, have arrived on shore. Godzilla sets fire to the village to stop them from pursuing him, which he kind of does in a way. Godzilla once again turns around and keeps on going inward into the island. The Mothra larva sees the flames, or sees the village burning, realizing that they can't go through it, so they split up. And so that's what leads into, you know, the sculpt of the Deforeal. One of the larvae gets close to Godzilla, and Godzilla at this point, as he gets more inward into the island, into the more mountainous, rocky area of the island, he stops for a minute. He keeps on looking around. He keeps on. He has a look on his face that they're just thinking, okay, where they at? I know they still follow me, but he's looking around, but he can't see them. Right? So that's when one Mothra larva clamps on Godzilla's tail, which sends him in a pain frenzy rage. He's flailing his body all around. He's taking his tail that Mothra is firmly attached to and just banging her to the ground, whipping her to the ground, you know, whatever. And that's when the other Mothra larva spots Godzilla, you know, being taken care of by the other Mothra. And that Mothra larva begins to spray Godzilla with that cocoon web, you know. And then at that point, Godzilla gets, you know, kind of tangled up in the web. And at that point, the Mothra larva that's attached to his tail gets broken off, you know, or at least it comes loose. And so basically, they corner Godzilla at this part of the island, in this mountainous area of the island, and they spray the web onto Godzilla to immobilize him. And that's my defense of the film, you know. It's the fact that the Mothra larva, even though they're babies, they use the numbers game as their advantage, and they also use the environment to their advantage. You know, with Godzilla being the bigger monster of the three monsters right there, he's bigger, he's more exposed. But with the larvae, on the Mothra larvae, I should say, they're smaller. So if one larva spots Godzilla and is able to get behind some rocks, and she sprays the web on Godzilla, if Godzilla spots her and tries to blow fire at her, then that Mothra larva can go to another area, another rock, and get another vantage point. And they used that as long as they could to immobilize Godzilla. And that's my defense of that. They used the numbers game, and they used the environment to bring down Godzilla. And it wasn't really like a knockdown, drag down affair. It wasn't a physical fight. It wasn't a fight where Mothra, or the Mothra larvae, I should say, physically dominated Godzilla the way that Kong did somewhat in the previous film. I know, and once again, that's another film where a lot of folks don't really like that ending. You know what I mean? But with this ending, I'm able to really understand it. I'm able to accept it. Trust me, of all the people to have a problem with this ending, you would think it would be me. Somebody that loves the 64, somebody that loves this movie with a passion, somebody that views this version of Godzilla and this film as their favorite. You think of all people to have a problem with this ending, it would be me. But I don't, because like I said, they use the numbers game, they use the environment to their advantage. And of course, Godzilla was the villain. He had to lose. He had to get his comeuppance, which is something that I have a problem with GMK. Now, don't get me wrong. I love GMK. It's my favorite film of the Millennium series. It's in my top 10 favorite Godzilla films. But one of my issues with that film is the fact that we don't see Godzilla get what he had coming. He dies, obviously, but he dies kind of off screen. So we don't really get to see what happens to him. And I think out of all the damage that Godzilla done in that particular film, we need to see him get his. And I feel the same way about Godzilla 1964. He did so much damage in this film, from rampaging his way across Japan, killing people, destroying cities, killing Mothra, destroying lots of military vehicles and personnel. He had to get what he had coming to him. So that's why I don't have a problem with the ending to Mothra vs. Godzilla. And I don't think that it's a big deal that some folks try to make it out. You know what I mean? And also, here's one last thing. If you have a problem with this ending, and I've said this on numerous occasions, then you should have a problem with the way King Ghidorah is defeated in the next film. And honestly, I don't hear a lot of people complaining about how King Ghidorah was defeated in the next film, because basically the same thing still happens. King Ghidorah, being a bigger monster, is confronted by Mothra, Rodan, and Godzilla. Monsters there are smaller than him, but yet they use their numbers, the numbers game, to wear down King Ghidorah. Now, Rodan and Godzilla provide the muscle to wear down King Ghidorah, but the fight wasn't over until Mothra spun her web around King Ghidorah's head to immobilize him, to blind him where he couldn't continue to fight, where King Ghidorah had no choice but to retreat. It's the same thing that happened to Godzilla in this film. So my thing is this: you can't jump on Godzilla, or at least have a problem with this ending, but yet not have a problem with the ending of King Ghidorah. You know, or Ghidorah the three-headed monster, I should say. They're both the same. They're both essentially the same. And once again, that's my defense to the ending of Mothra vs. Godzilla. Of course, it doesn't matter what I say. Some folks are going to take it and go through. It's going to go through one ear right the other. Some folks don't like the fact that Godzilla loses. You know, or at least he's taken out at this particular time. I wonder what some folks are going to think if he happened to lose to Kong next year, but that's another story for another time. And please don't hate me in the comment section for making that comment. I'm just trying to be real here. You know what I mean? And my thing is this: there's no shame with Godzilla losing every now and then. I think his track record when it comes to fighting other monsters have been really good. You know, and of course I love Godzilla like we all do, but at the same time, you know, it shows that he can still be vulnerable. You know what I mean? And him apparently losing to King Kong, which I do believe in '62 he did lose to King Kong. He did, in my opinion, he did. And now losing to Mothra doesn't really change anything. Do you look at Godzilla any less because he happened to lose to possibly King Kong and for sure to Mothra in these two films? Of course you don't. Obviously you don't. But at the same time, that's my defense to the end of Mothra vs. Godzilla. Once again, Godzilla was the villain. He had to lose. The Mothra larvae used their size disadvantage to their advantage, as well as the environment to their advantage, to bring Godzilla down. And that's why, once again, I defend this ending. I think it's an appropriate ending. We saw Godzilla get what he had coming. And of course, 1964's my favorite Godzilla film of all time, Godzilla vs. the Thing, better yet known as Mothra vs. Godzilla. So that pretty much concludes my review of the X-Plus Deforeal Standard Edition of Godzilla 1964. Yes, yes, yes. Based off his iconic appearance in my most favorite film in the Godzilla film franchise. Of course, Godzilla vs. the Thing, also known as Mothra vs. Godzilla. You have any questions, comment down in the comment section. Hit me up on Facebook via Elizabeth P. Chambers. We'll definitely go from there. Yes, once again, a solid release. Yes, yes, yes. A solid alternative 1964 piece, courtesy of X-Plus. Once again, they have done right so far with the 64 so far, with the Deforeal gigantic 25 centimeter, the favorite sculptors line, the original 30 centimeter. Yes, all solid pieces. You can definitely add this guide to the list. Such a great piece. I highly suggest you go after it. Whether it's the standard edition or the Rick edition of this figure, you can't go wrong with the X-Plus Deforeal Standard Edition of Godzilla 1964. Yes, yes, yes. Lots of stuff is coming here on the channel. Yes, lots of stuff to review. I have something gigantic and big coming in the next couple of days, and I'm just gonna just leave it at that. You know, you have to wait until that review comes, but hopefully that'll be up and running by the following weekend, this following weekend. And after that, I'm probably gonna chill out on the reviews for a while. At least to after G-Fest, because I'm getting ready for G-Fest. I'm getting prepared. I'm getting my last minute plans together. So after this upcoming gigantic review that I have planned, after that, I probably will not be doing any videos until after G-Fest, at least while I'm there at G-Fest. Once again, I got a lot of stuff to do while I'm there. I got a lot of stuff to plan for. But trust me, content will be flowing here on the channel for the foreseeable future. Once again, lots of stuff is coming, as well as stuff as I pre-ordered. Like I said, the 25 centimeter 64 big Godzilla from X-Plus. I'm getting the 30 centimeter Baragon from 1966, Gamma vs. Baragon, my favorite Gamma film of all time, by the way. The Sakai 1995, that's coming. Yes, also Super Festival is next week at the time of recording in Japan. And we may get some X-Plus news or more X-Plus new figures that are coming down the pipeline. Not to mention Wonder Festival is next month. So yes, that's going to be lots of stuff to talk about, lots of stuff to cover, lots of figures to review. Yes, content will be flowing here on the channel for the foreseeable future. And let's sit back and relax and enjoy the ride right here on Leslie Chambers Kaiju Reviews. Alright? So thank you for watching. I appreciate it. And I will see y'all again on next figure move review. Alright? Y'all take it easy.